All right, and we're here with Virtual House Church. What's up? I am Jake Grant. I'm standing in for Rob Skiba. Today's his birthday, and he's traveling abroad, so I'm going to be hosting the Virtual House Church today. I'm joined by two people, Anthony Stover and Chris Bailey, who will be joining us here in a few minutes. And I just wanted to screen share real quick with you guys. This is the Virtual House Church page. You can go to vhc.fremawakening.com. And here on the homepage, of course, we've got a lot of great resources here. Rob goes through this every week. We have the Defending the Messiah section. We have Coming Out of Babylon for people just getting started. We have things addressing Paul. We have things addressing Galatians, all the best kind of resources that Rob's compiled here over the years. Torah Fellowship, you can also find people in your local area. There's a map here that was put together by 119 Ministries. And also, you can go down here and find our studies. Right now, we are in Numbers, and we are going to be doing Torah portion study Korach. And you can see that here, week 38, Korach. And this is going to be a study of Numbers 16 through 18. And here, there's some great resources, kind of all the previous broadcasts, things that various people have joined over the years, joining on to the Virtual House Church kind of study group, I guess you can say, and going through the various different aspects of this study. It's really great to use this resource right here. It's the Parsha in 60 seconds. And we'll go ahead and watch that just to get everybody caught up with the Torah portion. And then we'll kind of introduce everybody and we'll get going. So here's the Parsha in 60 seconds presents Korach.
Welcome to the Parsha on 60 seconds. Today's portion is from Numbers 16:1-18:32. It is called Korah. Korah and his friends lead 250 chieftains of the Israelite community to rise up against Moses. Moses tells Korah and his friends to take fire pan before God. The next day, Korah and his friends took their pans and gathered the whole community against Moses and Aaron at the entrance of the tabernacle. God shows up and wants to annihilate the crowd. Moses implores God not to punish the whole community, so God tells Moses to tell the community to get out of the way of the rebel tents. Just as Moses finishes the short speech about God's power, the earth opens up and swallows Korah, friends, and family. Fire consumes 250 men offering incense, and God tells Moses that only Aaron's offspring can make incense offering. God then plagues all of the rebels. The next day, the whole Israelite community complains about all the death. God shows up and wants to annihilate all the people. Aaron makes an incense offering and stands between the dead and the living and halts the plague, but not before 14,700 had died. Moses collects autographed staffs from the leaders of each of the 12 tribes, including Aaron's staff of Levi. The next day, Moses enters the tent, and Aaron's staff has sprouted, blossomed, and bore almonds. God assigns the Levites to Aaron to aid in the duties of the tent of meeting. God establishes a 10% tithe. And that is Korah in 60 seconds.
Very cool. All right, so Torah portion Korach. We're going to be going through Numbers chapter 16 through 18. The prophets segment of this Torah portion covers 1 Samuel 11, 14 through 12, 22. And the New Testament version part of this study covers Luke 18, 35 through 19, 28. And there's several other things we're going to be kind of going into here as we discuss it, I'm sure. But first, let me introduce my co-host. I'm joined by Tony Stover and Chris Bailey. Hey, what's up, guys? It's great to have you on the Virtual House Church.
What up, Jake? Good to see you. Thanks for having us on.
Good to see you guys as well. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining and being willing to kind of go through and discuss this Torah portion with me. Now, Rob was unavailable today. He, of course, his birthday. So happy birthday, Rob. Shabbat Shalom, bro, wherever you're at. I know he's probably tuning in to watch this wherever he's hanging out at. But Chris and Tony are kind of no strangers to my circles, at least. I've been hanging out with these guys for a long time. Met both of them through the Take on the World conference, which I got to be a part of back in, what was it, 2017, Chris?
Yep, 2017.
2017, the first Take on the World conference. It was really great. It was just a place where a lot of different speakers and different people were able to come together. And Chris, I understand, you have another conference coming up where we might be doing a virtual house church live. So it would be a live house church. What really? So
Absolutely.
So what's that look like? What's coming up? Tell us what's going on in your neck of the woods, and what do you got planned?
Yeah, thanks for letting me have this opportunity to share with everyone. So if you guys are unfamiliar with Take on the World, this is our year number 5, last year virtual, but this year we are back full blown. This year's title is Arise and Equip. So, make sure this camera can get to see my part of my face a little bit. So yes, this year's Arise and Equip. After everything we dealt with last year, it is time to truly equip believers, and wherever they're at in their journey, take on the world. This is your opportunity for you. We're a full family conference, biblical conference, where we cover topics that the church won't talk about, and that your pastor's afraid to talk about, and pastors get fired for coming to our conference. Nate Wolf, shout out. But we are full family conference. Like I said, we have kids program, teen program. But so this year it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to have the virtual house church do a live Shabbat right at around the same time as normally as this takes place, live in person. We got Jake. Obviously, we have Rob Skiba. We'll go over some of the speakers there, but it's going to be an absolutely wonderful time, and we're going to stop all the other stages we have. So if you're familiar with Take on the World, or if you're not, we have over 70 speaking sessions over 3 stages over 3 days. We start in the morning and we end late night each night. You will be filled with more so than your thimble full, as most people when they go to church for an hour. It is a full jam-packed week of fellowship, learning, and hopefully when you go home, you're on fire to serve Him and go on and take on this world to all these people lost and dying out there that need His truths. They need the gospel. They need just that deeper relationship with the Creator. So this is your opportunity, not just for people who have been in this, but it's for people who are the skeptics. We want to reach anybody and everybody. So you'll find we got everybody from all walks of the faith in their journey. Maybe they're not there yet on this topic, or maybe they're coming to learn more about the feast days, or biblical cosmology has them interested. Something's going to bring them in. Something's going to drive them in. That is our hope and goal, and they can cultivate that relationship with not only the Creator, but with other people, so they can become in like Mike. Fellowship that is solely needed when we talk about some of the crazy things we do.
So, Chris, when is this conference again? What were the dates you said?
Yeah, so this year we are 56 or 55 days away. We are going to be doing a kickoff. It starts August 19th for the kickoff. It's a Thursday night. We're going to be doing live music. We're going to do some worship. We're going to have food trucks. It's a great way to get yourself set and prepped for Friday morning when the conference fully starts at around 9:30 a.m. And the main conference runs from August 20th through the 22nd, and you can arrive as early as Thursday the 19th, and you can leave on Monday the 23rd. So this is a great way for family vacation, a great way just to bring out a few of your friends. Show up for a day. If you're local, it's in Marengo, Ohio, which is close to Columbus, Ohio. Pretty central located for us on this side of the continent. But we have people coming from all over the country. In years past, we've had people come from UK, Scotland, Sweden. We've had people show up. Obviously, we get tons of Canada. Mexico. We've even had people roll through. So there's so many types of people who've been at Take on the World from all over the world. And this year, probably that's going to get shut down due to international travel. So, we don't know what the future holds. And I really want to take your, give you guys an encouragement. If this is the first time you're hearing about a conference or you've seen it before in the past, this is the year that I would love for you to be able to just show up, come, because we don't know if this is our last year. Not that we would quit it. We don't know what the Father has planned, but we don't know what this world has. If they go into another second wave and they shut things down again, are these conference facilities going to even be able to house us or hold us and do 400, 500, 600, 700 people events anymore? So I don't know. This is that great opportunity and chance for you to come, bring that family member, and just show up and be blessed.
I would like to specify something for the viewers. When he was talking about the kickoff day, when he said we have trucks, he was referring to food trucks. We're not just going to look at his
food trucks. Nice food truck.
Chevy Silverado.
So real food trucks we got. So we've had all sorts of types of vendors before. But we'll have, obviously kosher pizza. We'll have, all that fun stuff. Maybe tacos. Who knows what we're going to have this year? So what's that?
Awesome.
Oh, look, there's a Ford Ranger.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, over the years, for anybody watching it, it's definitely been well worth getting to go to the Take on the World conferences over the year. It's been one of the best kind of family friendly, big events with many different topics. A lot of really kind of introductory topics are going to be covered, as well as some really meaty, great different studies, and so definitely worth checking out, guys. So Rob and I have been attending the Take on the World conferences for many years now, and so if we end up doing a virtual house church live there, then that could be really cool to be able to hang out and spend time with people in person. And Take on the World conference is a great place to do that. So Chris, thanks for
Yeah, you bet. Let me go. Wait a minute. Right there. There it is. So if you go to totwconference.com, you can learn more today. Yes, you do need tickets. Is there going to be a live stream option? Most likely not. We're still in the midst of trying to record it. But we have everything. So we have a homesteading stage. We have, which is going to encompass things from homeschooling. We have Torah Town leading the kids program. We have George Moss, who's going to be doing part of the teens program. We've got a biblical cosmology stage. We're going to be having lots of Torah talks, feast days. We're going to be talking about that stuff. We're going to be talking about general things like spiritual warfare. The guy through the black, like Tom Dunn. We'll be talking, so many different topics. Just go to our website. You'll see them. 70 sessions, probably encompassing around 20, 30 different types of topics. So there's something for everyone. You guys are going to, so much music. So let me just share with you. We got Jake. He's going to be doing music at the conference. He's going to be doing a session, a couple sessions. He'll be on multiple stages. Tony's a speaker as well. He'll be sharing this year, and maybe throughout the show when you guys talk, maybe you can let loose of what some of the things you may share on. But real quickly, since this is Rob's place. Rob shared with me the 3 topics he's going to be covering for Take on the World. You will not want to miss these. He's going to be talking about evangelism is one of his main topics this year, and that's going to lead into a lot of stuff with seed. And then he's going to be talking about overcoming fear, anger, and depression. So that's going to be absolutely amazing. He's going to be sharing a lot with his story of his past. And these are his main sessions. So they're going to be 2-hour jam sessions. And then he's going to finalize the updated 2021 version of the Yahuwah Triangle. So, guys, it's going to be absolutely awesome and amazing. We're going to snag him over for a biblical cosmology Q session. We're going to be doing a special Flat Out Insights show. If you guys don't know, I run a show called Flat Out Insights on Take on the World TV. So go find me. I run it with Michael Solomon. So we've got some amazing stuff. Flatlanders documentary series is going to be there, airing episode 1, which features Rob and myself and a bunch of other people, Robbie Davidson, Mark Sargent. That's going to be awesome. So guys, there's so much stuff. You guys are going to be so blessed, and it's just going to be amazing. We got vendors. We shut down for Shabbat, obviously, but there's so many things where you can get involved, get things to get equipped. We're going to have deliverance sessions. So if there's a stronghold in your life, we've got so much stuff. Just check out our website at, let's see, right there, takeontheworldconference.com. There's my pitch. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Chris.
You bet.
I'll be over your house as soon as the show's over.
I'll stick on for a minute and then I'll jump off. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, Tony, we're going to go ahead and get into, some of the discussion, but before we do, maybe just introduce yourself to people who might not be familiar, and then maybe we can start in with this Torah portion about Korah, and I got some interesting things I'd like to share. I've been looking at some of the Targum translations kind of take on this. It really brings some juicy details out. It sheds some light on our last Torah portion. But before we do, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Tony? And it's great to have you.
Jake and I do a show called For What It's Worth, where we dig into stuff and just give our opinions and, for what it's worth. But I met Jake at the 2017 Take on the World conference, and I think we stayed up pretty late a couple days talking, and it was a wrap from there. But Abba's so funny. Like, of all the times that I get asked of any of the, it's the only time I've ever been asked to be on here, because obviously it's not a spot to be filled. But the day I am asked to fill in is the Torah portion that I need work on the most, with the concept of surrendering one's own will. So it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to hashing this out with you, chewing it up, and seeing what kind of aftertaste the bread of life can give us.
Yeah. I sent the link out to Juan Carlos, and so Juan might be able to join us later if he's able to. But me and Tony, our show we do together, For What It's Worth, is a great kind of an environment where we like to just bounce ideas off of each other, and it helps us kind of really dig into whatever we're studying, whatever topic that might be. And really kind of cool, profound insights come out of the discussion. So we might just do this virtual house church kind of like a For What It's Worth, Tony, and
it's a For What It's Worth edition.
For What It's Worth edition of virtual house church.
And Jake, we would be remiss, because it sounds like you and I do a show together, which we do, but we also do it with Jeremiah Dirt.
Yes, so that is true.
He's not a second-rate citizen here in the world of For What It's Worth.
Yes, he is the feature of For What It's Worth. That's for sure.
He makes me palatable.
Man, this Torah portion is really interesting. Of course, just to kind of remind everyone, last week we studied through the Numbers portions that discussed tzitzits and the wearing of fringes, and so today I brought some examples for people of some that I've had in my life. I had one that was black with blue strand going through it. These are the more traditional looking ones that my wife makes, with just a blue going through it. We discussed the tying of the knots and all, the different ways people do it. This is another one. In this Torah portion, it's really interesting that the rebellion of Korah is directly following the commandment of tzitzit given. And a lot of people have liked to theorize that Korah was actually rebelling because of the fact that they didn't like the tzitzit commandment. They were, they was like, this is too far. You guys are no more holy than we are. don't tell us what to put on our pants or wear in our garment or whatever. But that's something that I've heard theorized in the past, but it's actually brought out in a really amazing way in the Targum portion. I'm going to share this for you guys to look at. We can read through it together. Hopefully, oh man, I know that's really small on the screen for you guys, but I'm going to see if I can maybe zoom it in a little bit so you can see what we're reading here. So let me go ahead and read this. This is the Targum, and you can get this at targums.info, and this is just the Targum of the book of Numbers. And it says this at the beginning of our Torah portion, a slightly different one than what we're reading here in the regular old King Jimmy. But it says, Korach bar Tizhar bar Kehath bar Levi, he's a son of Levi, with Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and Onpar Peleth of Beni Reuben, so these are the sons of Reuben, took his robe, which was all of hyacinth, and rose up boldly in the face of Moshe, and appointed a different observance in the matter of hyacinth. Now, this is significant because the last Torah portion in the Targums, it actually talks about hyacinth is the color of a particular color of blue that was kept in the fringes. And so here in the Targum, it really hones in and says that the matter of the rebellion started regarding this issue with the tzitzits, the fringes. And it continues to say, Moshe had said, I have heard from the mouth of the Holy One, whose name be blessed, that the fringes are to be of white with one filament of hyacinth. But Korach and his companions made garments with their fringes altogether of hyacinth, which the Lord had not commanded. And 250 men of the sons of Israel, who had been made leaders of the congregation at that time, when the journey and encampments were appointed by expression of their names, supported him. And they gathered together against Moshe and Aaron and said to them, let the authority you have hereto had suffice you, for all the congregation are holy. And the Lord's Shekinah dwelleth among them. And why should you be magnified over the church of the Lord? So that's interesting because it brings out that the first big matter of rebellion that caused Korah and these other people to stand up was tied to the wearing of the fringes, the tzitzits, which is just in itself really interesting because you don't get that in the Torah portion in the regular King Jimmy. All it says is that they rose up before Moses with a number of the people, and so. One of these aspects of this that I wanted to point out that is a little interesting to me, I wonder if it's, if not prophetic in some way, is, we know that the thread of blue signifies the commandments, the Torah, and we're to look on it as a reminder to keep the commandments of the Most High. And we had Korah, it said here in the Targum that the people that had an issue with the commandment of the tzitzits, actually were making their entire garment and all their entire fringe of all the hyacinth color, all blue. And so it wouldn't be, a garment that had one thread of blue coming through it, but it was rather a garment that, imagine this white was, blue. It was a solid color, all blue. And there's almost something prophetic to this whenever you think about it, because you had Moses and Aaron were set apart in a position of authority over, the children of Israel, many. And the children of Korah had an issue, and they came and they said, isn't the whole congregation holy? And their tzitzits were all blue, or they were all one color. And so in a way, the issue at hand is in a type and a shadow kind of prophetic of what was actually happening, because their tzitzits, let's figure out maybe what that could represent. But I wanted to point that out because you don't get that in the traditional King Jimmy text, but it's also interesting. So what do you think, Tony?
I think that's a cool insight to that, and it kind of ties in with the other side of the coin that I was seeing, is that with the tzitzit, it's a purity that is has a thread running through it, the thread of the Torah running through it, righteousness through the Torah. And when you do it all blue, it would be more of a worshiping the righteousness of Torah. It's sort of like what he was saying when he said, listen to what they say when they sit in the seat of Moses, but don't do as they do, because they say it but don't do it. That's the same kind of vibe, and I feel like that kind of goes with what you're saying there too.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I think the whole rebellion with Korah is it's something that might happen again in the future. We have in Ezekiel 20. He pleads face to face and he purges the rebels out from among them so that they don't enter into the promised land. And so, as in like a personal applicable sense, we want to make sure that we are not being the rebels, the Korahs, right? And there's a lot of hints that we can get out of this story about what Korah actually was doing that contradicted or demonstrated a nature that we should not want to be like. So for one, it seems that he was doing the opposite of what Moses was doing. Like he's trying to go against Moses, who was set apart as this leader and appointed. So for example, just starting with the fringe, Moses says, put one strand of blue and through the white, and Korah says, do all blue. So he's kind of going in the face of the instructions themselves.
That is rebellion.
But and that is rebellion. But there was something specific that I wanted to point out here, and it's tied to how Korah was setting apart two other particular people, the sons of Reuben, who I'm sure in a way were probably a little jaded at the difference between the tribe of Judah, which was being given this authority and this inheritance, and they were being passed over as the firstborn who had kind of desecrated their father's couch. And so definitely going into this, there might be a little bit of Korah kind of coming to the firstborn tribe, Reuben, who had been cast aside, and offering, hey, this guy's trying to be our leader. Who made him leader? You're the sons of the firstborn, and let's go and let's challenge Moses. And it kind of shows us how often people and groups kind of usurp others. It's definitely it's just interesting how Korah and 250 people, all of these men stood up and they were following Korah. It just kind of makes me wonder, what transpired to allow all those people to be convinced to turn against Moses, despite seeing miracle, and proof after proof that he was the chosen.
It's the same. This is proof number 3,977 that pride and rebellion will always be hand in hand. I mean, the enemy watched creation, did he not? He saw all. He knows the power of Abba, yet somehow his pride made him rebel against perfect good, and it's the same pattern being extrapolated out in human form.
Yeah, I pulled this verse up on the screen for us to read. It says in 1 Thessalonians 5:11-14, "Wherefore comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even as also ye do. And we beseech you, brethren, to know them which labor among you and are over you in the Lord, and admonish you." So, first of all, let's just look at Moses and Aaron. These guys were humble. They constantly were interceding for the people, begging for mercy from the Most High. In my thought process, this is like church in the wilderness type stuff. And so that's why I wanted to bring up this verse in Thessalonians. It says, "And to esteem them very highly in love for their work's sake, and be at peace amongst yourselves. Now we exhort you, brethren, warn them that are unruly, and comfort the feeble-minded, and support the weak, and be patient towards all men." And like I said, if there's another future possible wilderness trial in our lives, whether it's a kind of a type and shadow, that we all go through these different wildernesses and these different trials and tribulations, or if it's a literal, prophetic repeat of the wilderness experience of the children of Israel for believers, if we're in that day and age where that comes to pass, we don't want to be these people like Korah that had the earth open up and swallowed us alive, into the abyss or whatever. And so, just with this New Testament, First Thessalonians context, he's like, hey, be warning the people that are unruly, and warn the people that are stepping out of line, because we know we have many examples of how God works cyclically through, history. And when you can go and you can see that in the past, whenever people stood up and they rebelled, that things happened, then it's super important for us to apply that now. Say, you're muted there. Yeah.
When you said Abba does things cyclically, that is a crazy word to say, cyclically or whatever. I started laughing because I just pictured Abba looking down on his children and going, "How many times do I have to tell you?" like how we do to our kids, except he's doing it in this grand, like, overlapping pattern over thousands of years and in the creation. It's nuts.
Yeah, there's so many patterns from the scripture, and that's why we study through the Torah portions, because not only can it apply in a broad sense to us as a people group and culturally, as congregations and stuff, but these different lessons can apply to each of us in a very personal way. And so we can figure out our areas of shortcoming, or how my life's looking a little bit too much like Dathan and Korah and Abiram. Maybe I need to change up what I'm doing, make a repentance to Shuvah, and change things so that I don't end up how their story ends up. And when we apply the word like that in our life, all these different examples and stories of grumbling and success and failure and triumph, they can become these lessons for us. And I wanted to point out this portion in the story where the Lord asks Moses and Aaron to separate so that he can destroy these people. And it says, "And the Lord spoke with Moshe and Aaron, saying, 'Separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may destroy them quickly.' But they bowed down their faces in prayer and said, 'O El Eloha, who has put the spirit of life in the bodies of the children of men, and from whom is given the spirit of all flesh, if one man hath sinned, wilt thou be angry with all the congregation?' And the Lord spoke with Moshe, 'I have accepted thy prayer for the congregation. Now speak with them, saying, remove away the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram.'" So right off the bat, we learn about a nature and a quality of God that's paralleled with the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and the prayers of Abraham to save the righteous that remained. Is because our Creator is righteous, Yah is righteous, he tells the righteous to separate themselves from the unrighteous so that he can righteously destroy the wicked. But in a way, it's almost mercy that Moshe and Aaron, they hit the ground flat and they start praying and interceding for the people of God. And because they don't abandon them, because they don't ditch them, there's more people that are saved along with the righteous, for example. So, it kind of, go ahead.
I was think about that from Korah's standpoint. For one, I didn't know the number one way to overthrow someone is to wake up before them. But anyway, he had start arguing with himself. In this Torah portion, it says he's arguing with himself, and he goes and he has this plan, and he's gonna, and for a minute, he thinks this is going to work. He starts to get some kind of rallying. He's like, "Oh, this is the beginning of the grassroots. You're going down, Moshe. This seat belongs to me." And literally, it ends with, like Moshe makes the prayer, gets the command from Abba, and then Korah watches people just walk over and take his tent and just move it out of the thing. Like, hey, where are you taking my tent? And it's like that's the least of your worries, because.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what the scene would be like. Apparently, some of the lore behind this particular instance is there's not very many instances where God is put to the test by his chosen, but when he is, it's almost like what if Moses had said it in a slightly different way, like if God is for me, then let Korah, let a tornado come down. Just whatever Moses had said would have been the way that this kind of situation would have played out. And it's funny when you look at the text that he says, "Let these men die, unlike men die," like in a not normal way. And he's like, if these guys die of old age, then I'm not not the one. But he totally puts the Most High on the spot to demonstrate that he was chosen. And so, it says that when the ground opened up and they went alive into Sheol, right? They went alive into the grave. And it makes me wonder, like, man, what would that look like? I was actually, this is an interesting topic because I was doing some research in the whole kind of a supercontinent premise of how, what if the continents were closer together historically than we know them today in the modern map. This is, if we have a 6,000-year-old Earth in a biblical timeline, and there was some type of continental drift, it makes me, I was looking for proofs of, well, if that was the case, then we would have to see, some evidence of, massive, movements in the ground, in the earth, if the continents were separating. And this one story of Korah is is one of the examples that I have as possible, indicator that, wow, what was going on in the earth in those days, if the earth just opens up, and it starts shifting and moving, could this have been, one of those examples of, two continents separating or something, that just, it opens up and that's the abyss, or
do you ever wonder if it was like a supernatural, Abba just does a little pinch zoom on the earth and just kind of opens it up, they drop in, closes it back, or if it's, like, crazy to say, more powerful than that, in which this was a natural event that happened that was already being worked into for years and years and years, like hundreds and thousands of years. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. That was just one of my kind of crazy ideas. What's going on there. But I find the whole situation very interesting. Korah seems to me like a precursor to almost like an Antichrist type figure as well. You have throughout, the rest of the scripture, in the New Testament specifically, you have these religious people that are standing up, believing themselves to be righteous and holy, believing themselves, in the way that they have said to do certain things to be above even the law of God itself. And it is not Korah just the earliest precursor of some of the Pharisaical traditions that we get later on, that we have Yeshua addressing and telling us, don't pay attention to what they do, but do when they, talk about what Moses said to do. But instead, you have Korah as this example of doing the opposite almost of what God's commanded, but also with this veneer of righteousness, which brings to mind the verses that, they're going to be putting people out of the synagogues believing they're doing service to God, and putting people to the trial and to death in a kind of end times tribulation sense. But they think they're doing service to God whenever they do that. And so in the same way, the Pharisees, they came and they attacked the apostles and Yeshua because they were, in a very similar sense, like they were kind of like Korahs in their own way, in terms of, the oral traditions and laws that they were imposing over the people that distracted from the obedience to the commandments.
I mean, I feel like the sin of rebellion, no matter what it is or who's doing it, it's all the same. It's trying to put yourself above Abba, and it ties in with last week's portion where he's talking about where he changes the how to do the fringe. It's a rebellion either way.
One of the things about this story that's always been interesting to me is the rod of Aaron that budded, that was placed into the Ark of the Covenant. And it was just this demonstration of the authority that God had placed on these people. And this is something that I had thought about over the past few months, is how there's specific items that were placed in the Ark of the Covenant. And these items, I wonder if there's any type of important spiritual parallel to, what we should be keeping in our arks. If our bodies are like earthly tabernacles for the Spirit of God, and the Ark of the Covenant, I could maybe make the correlation with, is something that was in the Holy of Holies. Could it be a representation of like what's in our heart? I don't know, possibly. But within the Ark of the Covenant, there were several things placed, and you had the tablets of stone, the sapphire stones that Moses brought the commandments down on, the second set, right? And we know in Jeremiah that he's going to write his law on our hearts, and they take the stones, the law, and they put it in the ark. And so that's kind of where I get the correlation between the ark being tied to the heart in a way. But not only was the stones of the covenant, they were put in there, but you had the jar of manna, and you had this staff of Aaron that budded and demonstrated his authority. And so it makes me wonder if there's any significant parallels with those items that were placed in the ark, and what we can learn from like the staff of Aaron. What was the significance of this staff? Well, whenever you look at how God used it to demonstrate his authority and his anointing and appointing of Aaron and Moses to their positions, it kind of makes me reminded of like this, just being reminded to walk in the authority of the Most High. Whenever you're being called to do something, whenever you're being called and you're, that God's got you to do something in your life, it makes sense to walk very, boldly behind that, just kind of like what Aaron and Moses did whenever everybody was challenging them and kind of coming before them and questioning their leadership. But it was put right alongside the commandments, and also the manna. And I've thought that maybe the manna could represent, just depending on his provision day after day, the manna from heaven, that they, of course, the manna is interesting because the manna itself reflected part of the Sabbath commandment, because within the commandment of how to gather the manna, it had ingrained within it also part of the Sabbath commandment. So that's interesting in itself, because they were told to gather extra on the sixth day, and they were told not to gather it on the seventh day. And that if they gathered too much every day after day, then it would spoil. But on the sixth day, they would gather the manna, and then it wouldn't spoil on the Sabbath, so they would have enough to eat. And then, of course, we know that the tablets, the stones, is his word, his law, his instructions that we need to have in our heart. And so all of those together were in the Holy of Holies, and surrounding the Holy of Holies, these items that represented certain things, you had the service of the priesthood. And I find it interesting that after we have this story of the rebellion of Korah, and all the 250 guys that brought their censers of fire before the Most High. Of course, that didn't go very well at all, because we know that only those prescribed by the Most High were supposed to bring and offer fire. But we see here in the story that Korah present you and all your company before the Lord, and this is in Numbers chapter 16, verses 16. Present yourself and all your company before you and they and Aaron tomorrow, and let every one of you take a censer and put incense on it, and every one of you bring the Lord his censer, 250 censers, you also and Aaron each his censer. So every man took his censer and put fire in them and laid them incense on them, and stood at the entrance of the tent of meeting with Moses and Aaron. And Korah assembled all the congregation against them at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the congregation. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and said, separate yourselves from amongst this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. And they fell on their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and will be angry with the congregation? And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, say to the congregation, get away from the dwelling of Korah and Dathan and Abiram. But then once it goes on, the fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men in verse 35 that were offering the incense. And so it was like Moses invited all these guys. He's like, okay, look, you guys say you're all holy, and each of the people, and that there's no difference between us and you. Then you guys bring your offering. You bring your incense and your fire, and let's see what happens. But we have very specifically in the commandments given, starting in chapter 18, that only the Levites that were chosen were to do these offerings and these sacrifices, and then those who did these offerings or tried to do them outside of the prerequisite commandment, they were going to be cut off from the people of Israel. And there's actually an interesting example of a king. I'm going to have to, I think King Uzziah, or let me.
Uzziah?
Uzziah? Uzziah. Yeah, King Uzziah, who was actually looked at as a righteous king. He got so prideful that it says that his strength caused him to become proud, which led to his destruction. And his destruction was tied to when he attempted to burn incense in the temple, and it's an act that's restricted to only the priests. And when the priests attempted to send him from the temple, the king became angry and was immediately stricken with leprosy. And this is a really interesting thing, to something we've discussed in a previous Virtual House Church, which is leprosy is the outward manifestation of sins, usually of rebellion or pride. We have the other example of leprosy appearing on somebody with Miriam, who, when Miriam began to grumble against Moses because of his Ethiopian wife, it was a very similar kind of grumbling, like, who went and made you boss? Both me and Aaron, Miriam was a prophetess and Aaron was a prophet, priest, and they started grumbling, and Miriam exhibited this outward sign of leprosy. And so, it's a serious thing to keep the commandments according to the commandment that was given. And so a lot of people, they look at people that are trying to keep Torah or keep, start studying out and keeping Sabbath and feasts. They say, well, why aren't you doing sacrifices? Why aren't you doing this or that? And well, the answer would be, it would be breaking commandments to try to keep some of those commandments. Especially, if we weren't chosen or appointed Levites, and if we don't know that we are Levites, and I'm highly skeptical of various blood testing and, different things,
I don't think it's possible to find out.
Yeah, I mean, who
highly unlikely.
Who determines what marker in the DNA is actually the original marker tied to Levi? Or, with that said, how do you know that not only are you Levi, but you also have to be one of the sons of Zadok? Because there's, biblical prophecy and important
Oh, sweet.
things.
He's on my mother's side.
Yeah. As long as you have the last name Cohen, right? No. But the significance with what we're talking about here is, in a modern context is, there's people today that are starting to prepare to do some of these sacrifices. And, I kind of wonder, are we going to be seeing, whether those are accepted or not very quickly? If somebody starts waving an incense censer before the Most High, if anything, it'll bring in some controversy and definitely
this is why I love doing a show with you, because whenever we talk, it always happens where our conversation will like take me to a train of thought, and then I'll be listening, and then by the end of your end of what you're saying, you have like basically walked around the back door of that and ended up inside of it. Because I was thinking, like, a lot of times even myself, I'm sure a lot of believers feel this way. We feel like it would be cool to see fire come down from heaven. It would be cool to see the miracles that we see in the Old Testament today. But when you're talking about when you were just talking, I was thinking, wait, no, I don't know if it would, because with those is come the fire consuming 250 people in front of you, the earth opening and swallowing people. I think Abba's sparing us a little, especially with the perilous times that we're living in now. There'd be a lot of fire coming down from heaven, consuming a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a really good point. What it makes me think of is something I've been contemplating the past few days, is how truly the age of grace is tied to also the age of ignorance. And what I mean by that is you have God winks at our ignorance because he's merciful, but he calls all men to repent. He's not going to continue to just like let us be ignorant. And so we have, in prophecy, Daniel talks about how the time of the end, knowledge increases and men will go to or fro. And whenever you have an increase of knowledge, not only do you have an increase of, technology and stuff, but you have an increase of understanding of right and wrong in the end times as well. And so what that does...
Would you call it the knowledge of good and evil?
Yes. You would call it the knowledge of good and evil. And people can look at it from either side, and people can focus on one side or the other. But for sure, the age of ignorance is coming to an end, to the point where I believe it opens the door to coming judgment and coming retribution for what we sow in our lives. Because whenever you have all the information in the world at your fingertips, we are all now responsible for what we are able to learn and study, and we're now we don't have the excuse that our ancestors did, which was, I can't go to the priest doesn't tell me the truth. Or you can't say I can't speak the language, I don't read Latin, I don't read the manuscripts, or I don't read it all.
I've never learned to read good.
Yeah, but I mean, literally, we have our culture and our community has the opportunity to be one of the most learned, biblically scholaristic, societies since the last 2,000 years. The Jews in the synagogue would sit and study, but they also had to, walk to the synagogue, and they had to sit and listen to the teacher. Now you have all the different translations and ancient documents at your fingertips. You might not be able to speak Hebrew, but you can definitely learn it, within, a few years. So it's just amazing the time period we live in. And then whenever we look at this amazing, people wanting to start studying out Torah and keeping the commandments, we can really look at examples like this and see, it's not about trying to figure out how to do it in our own way, which is what example I get out of Korah, which was, I see that, we are all holy, righteous people, but, we're going to try to do it our own way, which is unfortunately what we see a lot of the modern church does in some ways. Is they take, whether it's a way of celebrating the Most High, or it's a form of the world, how the world functions, that they try to implement in their services. But what we see is that it's really important that we just try to apply the word to our life in the way that it applies, and we don't try to just do it even if we can't do it. So if you're going out in the backyard sacrificing a chicken, you're not doing it according to the word. And so there's a big discrepancy there between trying to stop eating pork, starting to keep Sabbath, which are all very applicable commandments that, you can't squiggle and squirm your way out of it, because they're some of the most blatant, clear commandments there are.
Yeah.
But with Korah, he was definitely trying to get out of things that God had commanded through Moses by challenging, hey, we're righteous too. We can come up with things, in our way too. We can offer our incense in our way, and isn't that an amazing example for how people are today?
I just pictured him standing up in front of everybody like, hey guys, just so you know, as of today, the Gospel of Korach has deemed this Taco Tuesday. Just, you know what I mean? Just making up your own stuff. I don't know. When I first started walking down the Torah, well, when I first discovered Torah was still applicable, I started running down that path. And then I reached a point where I was like, wait, hold on. I need to do these. I need to work through these slowly, one at a time, because the more I know, the more I know to do good and I don't do it, it is sin to me. I need to make sure I'm doing this correctly one by one, which is, I think, what he means when he's talking about line on line, precept on precept. So you don't end up like, you don't end up with too much that you don't understand, and you're sinning just not out of near ignorance, I guess is a way to say it, because you don't know everything about it. I don't know. That was how my walk started, about like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the whole process of, degrees of responsibility. Whenever we all become believers, we have things to work on. And that's why you have the Jerusalem Council was said, start the Gentiles who wish to come into the faith with these things. We're not going to put anything else on them but these 4 things, right?
Yep.
Abstain from sexual immorality, food, sacrifice to idols, drinking of blood, temple idolatry. So, that I think giving everybody a starting place and then saying, hey, now come and learn, is the best. Isn't that how we become like the little children, where we don't show up already having figured it out? And that's the opposite of what Korah was doing, which was, I have it figured out. I'm going to show up and tell y'all how it's going to be, because we're going to wear our zitzites with all blue.
I was just about to say the legion of blue zitzites.
250. It's hilarious that over a style choice, God treated that serious enough to open up the earth and let people fall into a hole, into Sheol, right? So if he's willing to draw the line over a stylistic choice of how to wear zitzites, how much more is it important to just submit and be willing to obey, even in the littlest jot or tittle of the commandments, and just be like, look, I might not have it figured out, but I'm willing to do it. I think that's the heart behind how we approach the difference between Korah and somebody who would not want to be like Korah, right? Somebody who survived the wilderness and got to go into the promised land. It was those who were willing to obey, who were willing to be, patient and humble, to not grumble, And it just makes me wonder, in the future, are people going to be grumbling against our Messiah in the in the future, in the same way that Moses was grumbled against by Korah? And that's a mind-boggling thing. But like, if you had a bunch of people and Yeshua's standing in front of them all and he says, "Thou shalt do this," and you have people, just everyday people, we're out standing in a desert somewhere, I'm just getting to an extreme example here. How many people, if he told us to, the cloud's going, let's walk 5 miles through the desert, if you're grumbling, if you're complaining to not move when the camp moves, or if you don't want to, do this or that, would you grumble against Yeshua in the same way that Korah grumbled against Moses?
I think it would be amplified, because I think there has to be some weight put on the sky rolling back like a scroll and him flying through the air on a horse with a sword coming out of his mouth. I don't think the grumbling, I think it really amplifies. You don't really like, oh, who's this dude? Like, I don't see, you either are for him or against him at that moment. I don't see a petty grumbling. I think it just amplifies it. You're just immediately like, no, not this dude.
Well, let me address it in this way: is the children of Israel saw the fire descend on the mount. They saw the Red Sea part.
Oh, that's
They
true.
saw
That is true.
the mighty hand of God in Egypt
Jeez.
on the plagues of it. But the problem is
people
forget. And that is why the commandment of the tzitzits is so amazing how this comes full circle to, it's tied to remembrance. It's tied to remembering who he is and what he is, because whenever you forget, it's like going into a lion enclosure, right?
Yeah.
And every time you show up, because you're a tourist, the lions are terrifying, they're scary. But if you lived there every single day, and every single day you walked in, and that lion let you cuddle up next to him, and that lion let you put a biscuit in his mouth or whatever, well one day you're going to be so comfortable with how you're treating the lion that you're going to go in there and the lion's going to roar and bite your hand off, and you're not going to expect it. But it's because you've drawn yourself into a sense of security, a sense of comfort in the face of the terrifying truth of God's nature. That's where wisdom starts, is when you treat the lion like the lion. And
I have to have some information from you. When you said biscuit, are you thinking like a dog treat biscuit or like an actual homemade grandma made me some biscuits biscuit? This changes the picture in my head. My brain pictured like a buttered biscuit.
I was thinking like a kind of like a bit, just like, I don't know, like something like a biscuit to feed a lion, like that to me represents getting too comfortable, not remembering that the lion is a meat eater and you're going in there to stick a cookie in its mouth. Well,
I love talking to you, Jake, even when a bunch of people are watching us talk to each other.
Yeah. I mean, maybe all of our combined brains focusing in on this conversation will help an idea pop out or two. You never know.
Yeah, the remembrance thing is pretty, which is terrible for me because I have a terrible memory. Like, I forget stuff very quick. I've lots of thoughts going on in my head, and I feel like most of the things I'm like, oh yeah, let's remember that, and then it just immediately is gone. And I'll give an example. I have a rigid tool bag that I was selling on Facebook Marketplace. The guy came to my house to get it, and I missed his messages. And he showed up to my house to get it, and I wasn't here. And then yesterday, I'm like, all right, I will put it out, and you can stop by at 10 in the morning, and you can get it. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do that in like 2 minutes, and then forgot. And he drove all the way out again, and it was not out there. I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I'm a terrible, terrible person right now.
How do you explain after one of those double whammies, you know?
Oh,
like,
I don't know.
It's so hard, man. Like,
no, you just tell him I did it on purpose. He's not going to believe anything besides that. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes you're past the point of no return. You know, you just got to be like, you know, well, my actions are not demonstrating love. But yeah, you know, I think, you know, maybe, you know, if we look at our relationship with God, maybe that's how it is too. You know, how many times have we made meetings that we, you know, forgot, you know, or we're like, hey, you know, I'm going to do this, or you know, make one of those hasty vows. Like I remember doing that as a kid. Like, God, if you would just make this happen, then I'll do this. You know, but
that's scary.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, you know, at least in the past, I've learned that, you know, you got to be very careful being so quick to make a promise because it's hard. It's hard to keep it. It's hard to, you know, be, you know, on it all the time, especially, you know, with our fallible memories. But I think that's once again why God works in patterns, because he's merciful. He knows that we forget. And so he likes to remind us because, you know, maybe he likes to be reminded himself, you know? And so, you know, we go through each year. That's why, you know, the feasts are so beautiful because, you know, it takes a whole, you know, you go a whole year, you forget the significance behind the Passover and what the Messiah did. And you forget the mindset that you need to be into to, you know, really walk boldly through the whole rest of the year. Right. And so we come back around to like, cleaning out the leaven out of our house, because he knows we're going to forget little things. We're going to forget these pet sins or this or that. And he wants us to take the time to, you know, clean it out again and go back and do it again. And I think it's the willingness to be willing to repent, to be willing to return. That is that really key valuable factor there, is constantly being willing to check yourself. So
it's kind of like be like little children. Like I will show my daughter how to tie her shoes as many times as it takes till she knows how to tie her shoes. But I will stop if she's like, Dad, can you show me how to tie my shoes? And then I go to tie her, then she just starts like doing something else, like looking somewhere else, like not paying attention. Like if you're not trying to remember, I'm not going to help you. But I feel like a lot of the patterns of parents to children, like all of the patterns of parents to children apply for Abba to us. Actually, I think it's the other way around. I think the patterns of Abba to us apply to parents and children, because he's the origin.
So, you know, there's another aspect to this Torah portion that I wanted to get out is it does have an interesting parallel to me to kind of the selecting of God's chosen, kind of like what we're going to see in a future context where, you know, you're going to have this wedding banquet. You're going to have the people that he has chosen to be his inheritance. And then you're going to have the separating of the sheep from the goats. You know, the goats represent these stubborn, obstinate creatures that continually try to kill themselves. And they, you know, my wife, her mother, my mother-in-law, she, you know, she deals with goats. And so they're very stubborn creatures. But, you know, whenever we look at the sacrifices here, there's so much here, guys, that, you know, all we can really do within, you know, this show is just mention, because there's so much to dig into. But I believe there's a lot of prophetic parallels with even the offerings that people bring at the end of the Torah portion. So you have, you know, the threshing floor and the fullness of the winepress, and
that ties to Revelation.
And these are tied to, you know, things that people will go through. You know, people are going to go through times of tribulation, and you know, the grapes, they had to be crushed to produce their juice. So the people that go through the wrath of God, it's the grapes that are trodden under in the wine press of the wrath of God. That's is a kind of a parallel to the people who will be obstinate, the people who will have to go through the terrible tribulation and be shown what they're doing is wrong or wickedness. But then you have other offerings that are discussed, such as the grain offering and the wheat offering and the barley. And barley is really interesting because whenever it bears fruit, the head of the barley starts to bow over, and it bows down, while the tares, which grow up with the barley, they'll stand up straight. They have this rigid, bristly look, even though they are very similar in look to the barley with fruit, or the seeds on it. It will stand up straight. And so this is another example of Korah, in the kind of the parallel I'm trying to draw out for you guys is Korah stood up. Korah was the one who was like, "What's up? I'm going to rebel against what Moses is saying." And it's all the other people who stood up, the tares that were then taken out. And so there's, applying the parables of Yeshua to some of these stories is really interesting whenever you kind of layer them up together. But look here, we have 2 Samuel is our half Torah portion. I wanted to read through 2 Samuel because it's Samuel's farewell address, and maybe we can see if there's any parallels we can discuss in 1 Samuel. And I'll share this for everybody to read along with us. And it says, "Then Samuel said to the people, 'Come, let us go to Gilgal, and there renew the kingdom.' So all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. There they sacrificed peace offerings before the Lord. There Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. And Samuel said to all Israel, 'Behold, I have obeyed your voice in all that you have said to me, and have made a king over you. And now, behold, the king walks before you, and I am old and gray. Behold, my sons are with you. I have walked before you from my youth until this day. Here I am testifying against me before the Lord and before his anointed. Whose ox have I taken, and whose donkey have I taken? Or whom have I defrauded, whom I have oppressed? Or whose hand have I taken to bribe to blind my eyes with it? Testify against me, and I'll restore to you.'" Now, all of these are Torah commandments that, you're not to distort justice. You're not to, take a bribe. And it's just another example of Samuel kind of like saying, "Look, I didn't do anything wrong. You guys, you're bringing this on you." So it says, "They said, 'You have not defrauded us or oppressed us or taken anything from a man's hand.' And he said to them, 'The Lord is witness against you, and his anointed is witness this day, that you have not found anything in my hand.' And they said, 'He is witness.' And Samuel said to the people, 'The Lord is witness, who appointed Moses and Aaron and brought your father up out of the land of Egypt. Now, therefore, stand still, that I may plead with you before the Lord concerning all the righteous deeds of the Lord that he performed for you and your fathers.'" So he's establishing that Yahuwah, is the one who appoints these leaders. And just to bring this into just a quick New Testament context, he appoints Yeshua as our high priest, our counselor, as our intercessor, right?
Yep.
So this is another big deal appointment, the prophet likened unto Moses, that we don't want to miss. And that's why it's so important to recognize the Messiah and recognize God choosing him, because, you see how he dealt with these people who spoke against his anointed in this context. So let's keep reading here in Samuel. "When Jacob went into Egypt and the Egyptians oppressed them, then your fathers cried out to the Lord, and the Lord sent Moses and Aaron, who brought your fathers out of Egypt and made them to dwell in this place. But they forgot Yahuwah their God, and he sold them into the land of Sisera, the commander of the army of Hazor, in the land of the Philistines, and into the hand of the king of Moab, and they fought against them. And they cried out to the Lord and said, 'We have sinned because we have forsaken Yahuwah and have served Baals and Ashtaroths. But now deliver us out of the hand of our enemies, that we may serve you.' And Yahuwah sent Jerubbaal and Barak and Jephthah and Samuel, and delivered you out of the hand of your enemies on every side, and you lived in safety. And when you saw that Nashah, the king of the Amorites, came out against you, you said to me, no, but a king shall reign over us, when the Lord your God was your king. And now, behold, the king you have chosen, for whom you have asked, behold, Yahuwah has set a king over you. If you will fear Yahuwah and serve him and obey his voice and not rebel against the commandment of Yahuwah, and if both you and the king who reigns over you will follow Yahuwah your God, it will be well. But if you will not obey the voice of Yahuwah, but rebel against the commandment of Yahuwah, then the hand of Yahuwah will be against you and your king. Now therefore stand still and see this great thing that Yahuwah will do before your eyes. Is it not wheat harvest today? That's interesting. That's tied to Pentecost, the appointing of kings. I will call upon Yahuwah that he may send thunder and rain, and you shall know that see your wickedness is great, which you have done in the sight of Yahuwah, in asking you for yourselves a king. So Samuel called upon Yahuwah, and Yahuwah sent thunder and rain that day, and all the people greatly feared Yahuwah and Samuel. All the people said to Samuel, pray for your servants to Yahuwah your God, that we may not die. For we have added to all our sins this evil, to ask for ourselves a king. And Samuel said to the people, do not be afraid, for you have done all this evil, yet do not turn aside from following Yahuwah, but serve Yahuwah with all your heart. Do not turn aside after empty things that cannot profit or deliver, for they are empty. For the Lord will not forsake his people for his great name's sake, because it has pleased the Lord to make you a people for himself. So several things to just bring out in this is, wow, how amazing that he wanted us to be a kingdom of kings and priests. He wanted all the people to be these people directly under his authority, under his kingship. And then these people came and they said, we want a man for a king. And that's also, interestingly enough, tied to the commandment of tzitzits, because tzitzits were this commandment not only to remind yourself of the commandments of your king, the commandments of the king on the throne of heaven, right? But also to represent that we are all these kings, kingdom of nation, kingdom of kings and priests, a nation of holy people set apart, wearing these fringes demonstrated to the nations around them that these people were royalty, because they would wear the colors of royalty. And so that's why in the New Testament concept, the premise of being adopted into the kingdom of heaven, being adopted into the family of God, right, to be called brothers and sisters with Christ, it once again restores this amazing identity to the group, the ecclesia, the gathering of all of us being able to accept this kind of royal nature, this inheritance in Israel, like with right alongside Judah, Ephraim, Benjamin, all these guys. They were given an inheritance as the sons of Jacob. Well, in the same way, God wanted to give us all an inheritance through the Messiah, through being adopted and grafted in through faith in the Messiah. So, it's just this example of how he asks them to be part of his kingdom is to continue to obey and keep his commandments so that it'll go well with them. And it doesn't change. It's the same thing today. He still wants us to obey, remember his commandments, and submit ourselves to him, and not be like Korah and say, I have it all figured out and I'm going to do it my way. And I'm going to speak against Moses, right? Which is unfortunately what, our pastors in the modern Christian church are doing, is they're speaking against Moses. They're speaking against keeping the commandments, without knowing that what they're actually saying is tied to doctrine that is justified being a Korah. Our doctrines have justified us speaking against Moses and even speaking against what Yeshua said, by kind of taking that high and mighty approach of, well, we all have the Holy Spirit now, and the Holy Spirit will tell me if it's wrong, right? Well, the Holy Spirit's actually supposed to lead us to read the Scripture and then apply it into our life and to see, what God says versus what we say.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something I've been battling with. I mean, the surrendering of the will, the carnal man in me, like the fleshly part of me, that says whenever I process just surrendering all of the will, You know what I mean? It's one thing to give up most of your will. It's another thing to give up all of it. And that all of it is very hard. It's harder for some people than others. It's very hard. And in that, the fleshly part of me says, well, if I'm just going to give up my will, why didn't you just do it? Why did it, and then he has to remind me again, like the dumb little kid I am, that, hey, no, this is a test. And this is how good of a Abba I am, that this is a test so that we can be together forever. And it's not even that hard. It's not too far from you, and it's a blessing. Just do what I say, and you're going to be blessed in it. And don't, and it's a curse. Which is it. Have you ever read the Torah portion for your birthday?
I don't think I've actually calculated which one landed on my birthday.
Mine seems to be, it's especially about the giving of the blessing and the curse is the one for my birthday. It's I don't know. I'm not horoscoping it. I'm just saying it's an interesting thing to look at.
I'm looking at mine now.
He's like, this is cool. What is it? Yeah, it's so Abba's been working on me with that. I keep trying to shut the hood while he's while he's wrenching away on things, but
so it looks like my Torah portion on my birthday is Parshas Mishpatim. Mishpatim.
In English? Rosetta Stone that for me.
Yeah, so this is it's the 8th weekly Torah portion cycle, and it's Exodus 21 through 24. So this is for February 28th. Is now I want to see what it says.
There should be they usually give a synopsis right with it.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump over here on our Virtual House Church website and
plug the resources.
We're going to see what it says here. Okay, cool. So
I hope all the people watching and listening come to Take on the World so you can have a really virtual house church.
Now what we'll do is we'll go sit in a little room
where everyone's watching their phones.
Yeah, and everybody can watch their phones.
Everyone faces away from me.
We'll put the Virtual House Church up on the big screen in the other room, and then we'll be in like a room digitally broadcasting, 30 feet or something.
It's a real Wizard of Oz feel to that.
Yeah, the man behind the green curtain.
Yeah.
Yeah, the man behind the Torah scroll on Shabbat. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, let's maybe let's look at our New Testament scriptures for this week's Torah portion. And I'm going to pull that up real quick for us here. And this is John 19 verses 1 through 17, and the topic is Jesus being delivered to be crucified. Let's read through this, and I won't make any comments, Tony. I'll just pass it right over to you if you see any parallels with this reading I'm about to do and what we've been studying.
I see it right in the title.
All right, it says, Yeshua delivered to be crucified. Then Pilate took Yeshua and flogged him, and the soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns, put it on his head, and arrayed him in a purple robe. And they came up to him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," and struck him with their hands. Pilate went out again and said to them, "See, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no guilt in him." So Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Behold the man." When the chief priests and the officers saw him, they cried out, "Crucify him, crucify him." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no guilt in him." And the Jews answered him, "We have a law, and according to that law he ought to die, because he has made himself the Son of God." When Pilate heard this statement, he was even more afraid. He entered his headquarters again and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Yeshua gave him no answer. So Pilate said to him, "You will not speak to me. Do you not know that I have authority to release you and authority to crucify you?" Yeshua answered him, "You would have no authority over me at all unless I had been given to you from above. Therefore, he who delivered me over you has the greater sin." And from then on, Pilate sought to release him, but Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are not Caesar's friend. Everyone who makes himself a king opposes Caesar." So when Pilate heard these words, he brought Yeshua out and sat down on the judgment seat at the place called the Stone Pavement in the Aramaic Gabbatha. Now it was the day of preparation of the Passover. It was about the 6th hour. And he said to the Jews, "Behold your king." And they cried out, away with him, crucify him." Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" And chief priests answered, We have no king but Caesar." So he delivered him over to them to be crucified. So they took Yeshua, and he went out bearing his own cross to the place called the Place of Skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. All right, Tony. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot I had it muted again. It's the dying to yourself. It's literally the giving up of the will. It's the opposite of pride. It's humility and submission. Is the whole premise for this whole portion, and it seems to be going through all three parts. And what greater love hath no man than this, and a man lay down his life for his friend. So if he's giving up his ability to even choose by dying, he's following the will of the Father.
This reading through this reminds me that there's a really interesting book.
We even have it didn't in this description. It's not in there, but didn't the ground crack or open also at the crucifixion?
Yes, yeah, that is true. There was a big earthquake. What I was actually going to bring out is that Pilate. Yeah, so I'm looking it up now, but there's actually apparently a text about Pontius Pilate becoming a Christian, and apparently it's a very very powerful story about Pilate. His wife, she came and had a dream. We have this recorded in the Gospels, warning Pilate that not to have anything to do with Yeshua, that he was a innocent man. But later on, apparently there's a text that discusses Pilate becoming a believer, and which is in itself could be a very, powerful testimony and interesting story. I'm gonna have to find that text because I remember discussing it with somebody recently. Apparently it's a 5th century Syriac version of the Book of Acts, and explains Pilate's conversion as occurring after he blamed the Jews for Jesus' death in front of Tiberius. So Pilate prays to God and converts, and then was put to death. So
really,
that's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
I love seeing, how, the story kind of fleshes out, as we get some more of the historical context to it. But anyways, I wanted to point, this reading out and how it might be tied to our Torah portion, because, we have once again, another situation of somebody claiming to be king and being, called king. And this whole situation is all about authority. It's all about leadership. Korah was challenging Moses's authority and leadership. We have Samuel being like, "Hey, you guys, you're making a mistake giving your authority and leadership to Saul." And then once again, we kind of have it reversed here with, the crucifixion coming to place. But one thing I wanted to point out to everyone, and that's tied to what we've been discussing with tzitzit, is the color of purple. That it says that the soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head and arrayed him in a purple robe. And why did they array him in a purple robe? And I'm going to screen share. I'm typing in the color of hyacinth. Hyacinth. Yep. And you can see here, this is the color of purple and blue that we've been discussing. That's found threaded through the tzitzit or worn in the garments of the people who wore the fringes. And this purple is the color that I guess Korah and them, they were like, you know what, I want my whole robe to be purple. I want my whole robe to be, whatever this, blue color is. I know there's another study in the color being after the word techelet, which is a blue dye derived from the shell of a certain snail in the Holy Land. And so that's also a possible, color that's added into the whole holy, color of royalty and color of heaven. What's God's favorite color, right? Well, blue. The whole sky's blue, the water's blue. He told us to wear blue. Anyways, so I just wanted to share that picture.
We give him
because
the blues.
we're always causing God the blues. So oh man. Okay, so where else do we want to go with this, Tony? What do we what have you been thinking about our portion so far?
I think it's a little too close to home for me, and most of my processing has become internal. I'm trying to like, can't, everything I say, it's like everything I want to say, my brain goes, yeah, well, that condemns you. You better keep your mouth shut. So it's kind of like okay.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, that's why whenever I talk, I try to throw in as many. He's very merciful and patient with us as I can, because I know I need it too, guys. We're all just trying to figure this out and trying to, draw closer as we can. And that's why we do these studies. And, we're not pastors. We're just guys discussing the word because it has an impact on our life, and it's had an impact on our life. And the good testimony God's done in our life, I believe that he wants to continue those testimonies. And he's, he's got big, he's got big plans. If he started a work, he's going to finish it in you.
Just about to say that.
So, okay. So let me look over here. There was another interesting thing in the Targum rendering of this that I wanted to try to find again so we could talk about it.
While you're looking that up, when you were talking about Pontius Pilate, I couldn't even imagine being in his shoes. First, you got your wife coming to you, which is about dreams, which is, I mean, that's the first thing. And then you're like, I don't find any fault in this dude. And then they're yelling at you and they're making valid points. And you're like, okay, let me go talk to him. So then he goes and talks to Yeshua, and Yeshua makes killer dope points to him. And he's like, all right, yeah, I'm going back to them and telling them no. So he goes back to the Jews, and then the Jews make a valid point, and he's washing of the hands is like nearly inevitable after that. After that, he said, she said, where you're like, oh yeah, but your point's good too. Oh yeah, but your point, okay. And then I would imagine when he sees, he's like, yeah, you guys go do whatever you're gonna do, and then he sees what happens. The sky darkens, the ground shakes. That probably weighed on him he probably didn't sleep well for a while. That probably led to his conversion. Like, what have I done?
Yeah.
I wonder if I ever gave him peace about it. Like, no, it needed to be done.
Yeah, can you imagine how he was feeling? Like the sky was darkened, there was an earthquake, his wife had a dream. When the actual event took place, the earthquake happened, oh man, just think of like 3 days later, he hears the body's gone. He's like, I bet he was like sleepless, like he's like looking over his shoulder. He's probably
coming to get me.
He's coming to get. Oh man. I did find that portion that I wanted to read, and it was tied to, whenever the punishment did go out amongst the people, over 14,000 people died from this event of the rebellion of Korah. But Aaron actually had a little bit of an accessory role here to stop the curse that was going through the people. And it says, and Moses and Aaron take the and the Lord spoke with Moses, saying, "Separate from the midst of the congregation; I will consume them at once." But they bowed themselves on their faces in prayer. And so, when you read First John says, we have an advocate with the Father, Yeshua, our righteousness, Jesus Christ, our righteousness, so that when we do sin, we have an advocate pleading on our behalf. And that's exactly what we see Moses and Aaron doing here in the Torah portion. And it says that they took a censer and put fire in it from the altar and sweet incense in the fire. And we have these prophetic parallels that our prayers are a sweet incense before the Most High. And bear it quickly into the congregation and make atonement for them, for a destruction like that which consumed them in Horeb, whose name is burning, hath begun to command by commandment to kill from the presence of the Lord. And Aaron took as Moses had said, and ran into the midst of the congregation, and behold, the destruction burning had begun to destroy the people. But he put on incense and made atonement for the people, and Aaron stood in the midst between the dead and the living with the censer and interceded in prayer, and the plague was restrained. So in the same way as Aaron standing between the dead and the living, we have Yeshua is our priest, our high priest, who's going to stand before the dead and the living. He's going to separate between those, the right and left, the sheep and the goats, the people who will be cast in the lake of fire, and those who will be given eternal life. And it's him, Aaron, taking this role that shows us later on what our Messiah is supposed to be doing for us, which is interceding, getting on his face and praying for us, saying, "Have mercy on them, Father, for they have sinned," right? And then we have this amazing scene here where the plague was stayed. And so just another example of Yeshua being our high priest in a New Testament context, and how here Aaron was told to intercede for the people and stand between the curse and those who he was to save. Hey, your mic's there.
Sorry, I didn't want to hear the typing sound. When it says his name is burning, where is that at? What was that? What reference was that?
So I'm reading the Targum version, and this is in right before chapter 17. So the very last paragraph of chapter 16 is what it looks like.
Can you read that part again?
So this is the Targum's version, and I'll screen share it for you guys to read along with me. And it says, "And Moses said to Aaron, take the censer, put fire in it from the altar, and sweet incense on the fire. Bear it quickly into the congregation and make atonement for them, for a destruction like that which consumed them in Horeb, whose name is burning, hath begun by commandment to kill from the presence of the Lord. And Aaron took as Moses said and ran into the midst of the congregation, and behold, the destructive burning had begun to destroy the people." So that's interesting. Huh. It literally called that plague after almost like a proper name. Like its name is burning,
It's
very interesting.
What classification of angel was the Lucifer, or the enemy, the devil?
Yeah, I know.
Seraphim?
A cherub. I know cherub is. I know seraphim. I've heard seraphim and cherubim.
The word for burning, and there's two words for burning in Hebrew, a negative one and a positive one. The positive one is qatar, Qatar, and that means to burn a sacrifice. And the negative one is seraph, and it means to consume. So I don't know. So his name is Seraph. So there's like a consuming going through them. I don't know.
That's really interesting insight, because I can go over here in Blue Letter Bible and we're gonna pull up this verse here, and I believe it's Numbers chapter 16, verse. One moment, I'm gonna look. Yeah, Numbers chapter 15. So I'm going to do verse 40.
Yeah, that's what Moses put on the pole in the wilderness, was a seraph. A fiery dragon or fiery serpent. A burning serpent.
All right, so I'm pulling up in Blue Letter Bible here, so people can look, and we're going to look at the language. So get up from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. And they fell upon their faces. And Moses said to Aaron, take a censer and fire there from off the altar, and put incense, and go quickly unto the congregation, and make an atonement for them. For there is wrath gone out from the Lord. The plague is begun. So this is in our King Jimmy, and for wrath, keseb yasa Yehovah. So yeah, it's definitely a different. Okay. It's a different rendering. With
is it from where it says whose name is burning? That's the part I was.
Yeah, because I was reading that in the Targums, and
I see.
It's not. Yeah, it's not in the Masoretic text here that the King Jimmy was translated from. Okay. But anyways, it is interesting, very interesting. Just the proper names that certain things in Scripture are given in itself is a rabbit trail that could go on and on. Like the deep itself could be an entity. Like there's different things that are given proper proper names. And one of the most powerful, of course, that I want to mention before we get going here is my word, which we often bring up, and this is the reason that I like to read through the Targums. Is my word is an expression that refers to kind of like a pre-incarnate Yeshua. Like this is the mediator. This is the one who makes the covenant, who meets the people, who intercedes, who and it's really beautiful. But on the rod of Levi thou shalt write the name of Aaron, for there is but one rod for each head of their father's house, and thou shalt lay them up in the tabernacle before the testimony, where my word is appointed to meet you. It's not referring to the word as like a book. It's not my tablets will tablet stare at you. Like this is an entity, my word, and I believe this is Yeshua, the Word made flesh, according to John chapter 1. And it's so beautiful how the Targum, that this is why we like to read through the Targums, and I like to see some of the extra tidbits it adds for sure. But with that said, knowledge is one thing, but seeing the Messiah so baked into these texts is one of the reasons I love the Targums, just because it really helps clarify that it has always been the mediator, the intercessor from the very beginning, trying to plead and represent mankind to the Most High from the very beginning, from the Garden of Eden, the Lamb slain since the foundation of the world. So the Targums uses this phrase, my word, and it's just very powerful. But that's really what was so amazing about this priestly role, to kind of wrap things all back around to what this is all about, is Korah, they were challenging Aaron and Moses regarding the priesthood and the role of the priests and the role of being able to approach the tabernacle of the Most High. And God gives the Levites this special representation ability. They have this role, and that becomes their inheritance. But it's so important that people, approach the Most High according to His standards, because you see, even with Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, they transgressed by presenting profane fire. And it's funny to me that these 250 guys who also, produced profane fire that they offered before the Most High, they also died in the same way that Nadab and Abihu did. So it's almost like this ramped up version of what Nadab and Abihu did when they offered profane fire that was not required, not supposed to be offered, but they were doing it and not even being, Nadab and Abihu were literally the sons of the high priest, and they were supposed to get it right. And so it's not that God is only hard on people who are not Levites when they try to do things for the tabernacle. He's not a respecter of persons. And if this doesn't demonstrate that, at some point, we could be in the wilderness and there could be some mighty men of renown, people who are Bible scholars or whatever, who think they have it all figured out. And we don't want to be those people, those Korahs that stand up and say, hey, my cup's already full and it's overflowing with, being jerk. So, anyways, Tony, you got any other thoughts you'd like to leave us with? I'm going to jump over in the chat. If anybody has any final thoughts or questions you'd want me to read out, go ahead and put those in there now. And Tony, give us some of your final thoughts, and I'll see what the chat's saying, and then we'll see. We'll kind of wrap up here.
I mean, my takeaway from this, as painfully self-aware as it makes me, is just die to yourself. Just don't question your leader. Moshe was a not type of Messiah. It was a type of the Messiah. It was a foreshadowing of the Messiah. He was an intercessor. He was born of water. There's hundreds of ways that Moshe was a foreshadowing of the Messiah. And in all that, just the simplest thing to take away, the hardest thing to do is we don't make good decisions. I don't. People don't. We make some, but overall, we're just like, I'm pretty sure when it all ends and we get to rewatch the tapes, we're going to realize that probably most of the good decisions we made were really bad decisions that Abba was helping from the outside. You know what I mean? Just so as a whole, we just need to, with love, as it was talking in Thessalonians, with love, just help each other. Help each other. We all don't agree on everything. That's fine. Just help each other to move in a general direction towards Messiah and towards dying to yourself, dying to ourselves, dying to wanting to control our will, because of the fear that usually comes when you're out, when control is lost.
Yeah, well, I was looking in the comments here. It looks. Thank you, everybody, by the way, for joining us. I know I'm hosting Virtual House Church on the Cuff today, but hopefully we'll get this uploaded over on Rob's channel. And thank you for those who've tuned in live and joined us. That's great. We appreciate you guys participating and studying along with us. I see some.
I'll never be a Jake Grant, so I'm filling in for Jake Grant as he fills in for Skiba. So sorry, you still get Jake Grant, but
sometimes I have trouble filling in for myself. So, we're hey, I see some comments here. Somebody saying, can someone clearly state what a Torah compliant tzitzit looks like? If one has a white or blue string added to the blue, is it a transgression? The commandment, found in Numbers, it's not super specific. It's fairly vague. There's a couple different culturally, the way people do it. They wear fringe garments that are like four-cornered. They wear it, or they'll wear underwear, and they'll wear just a thread of blue. But to my understanding, the only commandment that's specific is that it have a thread of that blue going through it. And now there's people that have all different types of colorful ones. I got some that are, different colors. Most people have just the white and the blue. I know I have.
Did your wife make all those?
Yeah, no, actually, she made some of them. She made this blue one. By the way, if you guys need tzitzits, my wife makes them. So, I think she sells them for like $15. But you guys can send us an email or leave a comment or something, and she makes a 4
also,
set.
guys. This is a plug for this. Sierra made me mine, and she made me little ones, and they're awesome. So like, because I work I do a lot of painting and tile work and just a lot of stuff where when I was wearing my longer tassels, they would just end up like in my bucket of paint, or you know what I mean? It's just like I was just like, these things, the Torah should not be in the way. My remembrance should not be in the way of my work. Like eventually I'm gonna have a negative connotation, like, oh yeah, that stumbling block of a tzitzit. So, but the little ones Sierra makes are awesome. So if you're looking for some that aren't cumbersome, if you're looking for some Torah tzitzits that aren't cumbersome.
Yeah, she does offer the short versions. When people ask for the kind that sweep the ground, she doesn't often do those. I'll say that she's more of a humble tzitzit maker, not a floor sweeper, because it takes way too long to tie, a tzitzit that long. So if people's tzitzit sweep the floor, then they're actually, they either have too much money for fabric or they just enjoy braiding.
The Bible talks about the people that elongate their tzitzits. It's while we're on this topic, I would like to announce to all the viewers that Jake and I have officially formed a Torah-based Southern rock band called Tzitzit Top. It's
Tzitzit Top.
That's a joke. We didn't do that.
Yeah, once my beard's a little bit longer, I might be able to do that, but. Oh man. Hey, so thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and play out the Aaronic blessing, and then we'll say bye. And thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a good discussion, Tony. And
don't forget to go to totwconferences.com and come hang out with the large family in the Messiah.
Yeah. I just definitely wanted to give Chris his shout out for Take on the World, totwconference.com. I had trouble finding that, but Rob's going to be there. Tony and I will be there. It'll be just a really great thing. So just it's a great time for people to get together and spend time with people in person. Don't forsake the assembling together of yourselves. I think is an important thing.
This is a big assembly.
Yeah, that's the way you do it is you show up where other people are showing up as well. So,
and I will only give the title of what I'm speaking on. Hopefully that will lead to intrigue. It is it's the working title. Chris has to approve this, I suppose, but the psychosomatic tumor of the Messiah. So,
that's super interesting.
So,
very cool.
The psychosomatic tumor of the Messiah. So, just roll those words around, and it's not even really that deep.
Yeah, I don't know what I'll be presenting on or whatever. I'm sure I'll be roped into something, but
roped in,
hogtied. Yeah, I think Chris is going to have us try to do some music or something too. But how about we just go ahead and leave you guys off with a little bit of music? We got the Aaronic blessing here, performed by Adam Fink of Parable of the Vineyard and yours truly, and then we'll wrap up here. So I'll go ahead and play that here.
יברכך יחוה וישמרך יאר יחוה פניו לך וחונקה יישא יחוה פניו לך ויעשה לך שלום יישא Yahuwah panav lecha v'yaseh lecha shalom v'yaseh lecha shalom v'yaseh lecha shalom. Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
All right. Well, that brings us to the top of the hour, Tony. I appreciate your time and your conversations. You're a great guy. I love you, bro. You're muted.
I don't want
It's
to
okay. I can read
spoil.
lips.
I don't want to spoil your Mixolydian scales you were running there at the end. There was none great, no, not one. I thought of something on Father's Day, and I should have posted it, but next Father's Day, we should all remember to tell Abba Happy Father's Day. Maybe everybody does, and I'm just late to the party. But I was just my buddy Cordell Hazard messaged me, told me Happy Father's Day, and it made me think like I always try to deflect when I get like weird attention. Like I don't like birthdays, I don't like stuff like that. Like, and so I deflected like, wow, Happy Father's Day. Wait, we should all be telling him Happy Father's Day. He's like the best one ever, ever, ever. The only one, really. So just a sidebar.
Well put. Well put. Yeah. Father's Day is I think I like that he's our heavenly father because hopefully he'll be very patient with us. I really appreciate the typology behind that expression,
And like all kids, we exasperate him. I mean, he literally shortened our life length because of it. He's like, I'm not contending with these kids forever. Okay. And then he sent the spirit. He like turned it over. He's like, okay, you go watch them for a second. I need a break. Not really. It's a whatever.
Yeah. All right. All right, guys. Well, Shabbat Shalom to everybody watching. Thanks for everybody over in the chat. And thank you, Tony, once again. And until next time, Shabbat Shalom.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.